everything that we say shows who we are. And in today's age of social media, people scrutinize everything
they do.
that a leader does, and they're called into question. And so if you're not keeping your brand promise, people will call you out on it.
Welcome to Climb Higher with Her, a podcast about women and their leadership journeys. I am Darlene Repollet, First Lady of Kean University in New Jersey, and your host. As a former corporate HR executive of 25 years, I have a passion for understanding what makes leaders thrive. We are going to speak with women leaders from government to business and everything in between to hear their stories, share their valuable lessons, and gain actionable wisdom. Robin Landa is a distinguished professor at Kean University and a globally recognized expert in creativity, branding, design, and advertising. She has received numerous honors over the course of her career, including being named by the Carnegie Foundation among the great teachers of our time. A member of the New Jersey Advertising Hall of Fame, Landa is also the best-selling author of 25 books, with a few more on the way. Landa's insights on branding have been featured on various networks and TV shows such as Good Morning America and Newsweek. She's been quoted in the New York Times, France 24, and Yahoo News. And if that's not enough, she contributes regularly to Inc. magazine and has articles appearing in publications such as Harvard Business Review and CEO World. Through her teaching, mentoring, speaking, and writing, Robin Landa has shaped the careers of thousands of creative professionals, inspiring the next generation while helping to define the future of the creative industries. Well, hello, and welcome to Climb Higher with Her, Robin.
Thank you so much, Darlene. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Yes, and we are pleased to have you here. And so let's jump right in. One of the numerous books that you have written is entitled Build Your Own Brand. So can you sort of first give us an overview of what branding means? And then secondly, why is it even important from especially a personal branding perspective?
Well, branding is a very large term that we use in the design and advertising industry, and it encompasses, when you're talking about a commercial brand, the name of the brand, the strategy, the tagline, its position in the marketplace, all of its advertising, all of its marketing efforts, everything involved, the brand identity, which most people think of as the logo,
okay,
and any packaging, any touch points that the consumers see, whether that's on a truck or on a sign. But in terms of personal branding, it's really about how you present yourself in public, what your values are, how you manifest those values, how you live those principles, and the consistency with which you perform, how you live your brand promise. Every brand has a promise, and individuals have a promise too in what they deliver to their stakeholders, their audience, their organizations.
And so it's important then to actually be intentional around that branding, right?
That's a perfect word. That's an absolutely perfect word. It's intentionality, absolutely. Yeah. How do you live your principles? Are you authentic? With every choice you make, every decision, how you engage with people, how you present yourself on social media, the kind of voice you use, how you say something, how you behave, all of it is intention. Absolutely right.
And so it kind of makes me think about the elevator pitch, right? So many people struggle with this creation of an elevator pitch, which I think relates to branding, personal branding. And what would you say are The three essential components, kind of the building blocks, if you will, of really crafting a message to make someone's personal brand instantly memorable as part of that elevator pitch.
Well, the first thing that we always talk about, whether you're an individual, an organization, or a brand, is differentiation. What makes you stand out? What makes you different? And then how are you distinctive? How do you realize that in terms of your presence, whether it's how you speak or how you dress or how you post on social media? So differentiation, distinction, and then of course your promise. What do you promise to people, and do you follow through on your promise? Do you keep your promise? And I think those are the three pillars of a personal brand. And underneath all of that are your principles, are your values, whether you're living your values.
Yeah. So if I take that and that everything you just stated helps me create the personal brand, but I'm in an elevator and the CEO jumps on board at floor 4, and we're riding all the way to floor, 15. How does that relate then to the conversation that I might have in those couple of minutes that I have with a CEO?
I think it depends. I'll give you one example. A student of mine who was working in an advertising agency, the chief creative officer of the agency got on the elevator with her at floor 4.
Yes.
And she saw him looking at his finger, and she said, "Do you need a Band-Aid?" And he said, "Yes, I do." And she said, "I have one right here." And later that day, she was called into the office, and they found a much better position for that young woman.
Interesting.
Based on her interaction with observing him and thinking about what he might need, what was a pain point for him.
Right.
So I think it's about observation, it's about the moment, it's about the context, it's about seeing what the other person is interested in, not about you, but seeing what they might need in the moment.
Right. And so in that example, she noticed that he literally was in some sort of pain and needed a Band-Aid. Yes. And then I'm sure they had conversation, right? Yes. Beyond just what he was going through, that particular situation, but sort of what maybe projects she was working on or whatever. But then I really like the guidance that you've given, and I hope our listeners kind of honed in on that in terms of not just what can I get out of this, right? In this interaction or in the conversation, but what also does the person need, and how might I be able to help or respond to their need? Because like you said, that then builds a level of trust.
Right. And it's about emotional intelligence. It's about establishing a relationship. It's almost like if you think about dating. If you go on a date and the person doesn't ask you anything about yourself, that's not a good sign.
Right.
If the person asks you a lot of questions, you're more inclined to be interested in that person as well. So I think it's always about who's this other person I'm with, and how can I relate to this person.
Yeah, that's really good advice. We have a broad audience of leaders that listen to this podcast. And so what would you say is the single most important way a clear, authentic personal brand translates into effective leadership and influence? So really the question boils down to everything that we just talked about, personal brand. How does that tie to leadership?
It's very important. I think it has to do with being authentic. It has to do with living your values, with living your principles. I think it has to do with accountability. It has to do with emotional intelligence, understanding who you serve and why you serve them and what their needs are and how you can best help them. Who are your stakeholders? It really just affects every aspect of leadership but the most important thing is that it has to be authentic. It can't be aspirational. I mean, they can
Okay.
evolve,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't say, "Oh, I'm a kind of caregiver archetype," but not live it.
Yes.
It
Yes.
has to be in every action. I really believe that existence precedes essence, that we build who we are, that everything that we
Yes.
do, whether every act that we take, everything that we say, shows who we are. And in today's age of social media, people scrutinize everything
They do.
that a leader
Yes.
does,
Mm-hmm.
and they're called into question. And so if you're not keeping your brand promise, people will call you out on it.
Yeah. And that word authenticity, right? I think it's used a lot, but it's so critical. It is so critical because, like you said, it's not good to say one thing and behave and act in totally different than what you're saying. So that authenticity, I like to think of a person's brand as their currency, if you will. So, for example, a strong personal brand, I think, can open doors to, as an example, key partnerships, right? Without needing that cold introduction. If someone has sort of witnessed you or seen you, then that might open doors for you that you didn't even know someone was paying attention, if you will. I also think your personal brand, if it's a positive one, might be able to help you secure a publishing deal. And so why do I say publishing deal when I'm talking to Robin Landa? I say that because I honestly think of you in that way. I've heard about the numerous books that you have written, and you are an award-winning author. So I imagine you certainly have a positive brand, right? That gets you into, let's be honest, notable publishing houses. So talk to me about that from your own personal perspective.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. I think my personal brand in academia is compassion. I'm very interested in my students' well-being, and that's my driving force. And designers always talk about empathy. We're human-centered people, and the whole design thinking process is human-centered. But I think compassion goes a little bit above empathy because it has to do with how you actually act on the empathy.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that a lot of my books have to do with how whatever my research can actually be disseminated for the greater good. How it can help society, how it can. It's been very planet-centered recently.
Okay.
As I said, designers we always talk about human-centeredness because it's for people.
Yes.
But no planet, no
people.
no people. And so I've been pushing a planet-first agenda in design for a while now. And I think that publishers respond to design for public good.
And I love the way you talked about, again, the word intention, right? And hearing you describe your intentions with your role as a professor, with your students, and then your role as an author. You were very clear about what your intentions are, and it's around compassion and that being your driving force. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that gives insight to our listeners in terms of how they may find, again, going back to personal brand, right? But find their intention and their purpose. So,
Yes.
so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So if you could distill the advice everything that we just talked about around personal branding, if you could distill that advice down to one sentence for our listeners, what is the single most important element that you think they must define to create that powerful personal brand?
How do you differentiate yourself?
Differentiate.
How do you stand out? Why would I want you as opposed to someone else? And I always say this to my students. We have a cohort, we graduate a cohort of outstanding portfolios. And so when they're going to look at your portfolio, they're going to look at the person next to your portfolio, and you go on that interview, why do they want to sit next to you at the office?
Yes.
What makes you interesting? How can they look into your soul and see what makes you tick? And so it really is about, how do you stand out?
Okay. So we've talked about a few keywords: differentiation, authenticity, intention. That it all boils down to that in the end, doesn't it?
Yes. You hit it exactly with intentionality, because everything you do, whether you're a leader, a designer, a professor, is intentional.
Yeah.
It has purpose, and it's the purpose that gives you meaning and gives you drive. And I think most people who are productive have identified their purpose. They're doing it for their why, as Simon Sinek always talks about your why.
Yes.
So like if you think, oh, well, I really don't think I'm going to exercise today. Well, why would you want to exercise? It's about your health. It's about longevity. It's
understanding your why.
Yeah, understanding your why. Who are you?
Even when you don't want to do something.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Robin, my next question for you is really around, how did you even get into creativity and branding, design and advertising? What brought you to your field of expertise?
I have an MFA in fine arts, and I was hired to teach when I was in graduate school outside of my fellowship, because I was teaching at my university. But I got an adjunct position at City Tech, a college in Brooklyn. And I was hired by a woman named Dorothy Hayes, and she was a graphic designer, and she ran the graphic design major at the university. And when I was there teaching color theory, I went into her classroom and saw what they were doing. And I said, Dorothy, this is so interesting. Can you tell me about this? And she said, sure. And she explained the whole graphic design field to me. And that changed my life. I went back to school thanks to Dorothy Hayes, and I studied graphic design, and then I studied advertising, art direction, and copywriting, and my entire career pivoted.
So you went into her class. She opened your world, really, to graphic design. You fell in love with it. But I want to zone in on something you said. So you already had a master's in fine arts. You went back to school.
Yes.
How was that for you?
Well, I already also had a master's in art history, so I hadn't been in graduate school for a long time.
Okay.
And I really thought I wanted to be an art historian, but I didn't want to deal with. You have to pass the French and German exams, and that was French conjugations. I'm still looking at you. I spoke Spanish and English, and it was just overwhelming. And so I missed fine arts, so I went, finished that, and got the MFA in fine arts.
Okay.
So I went back at night, and I went back to the School of Visual Arts at night, and they still do have a wonderful continuing education program where you could study with professors who are practitioners.
Yes.
And I studied with some amazing people, and I was a quick study because I already had a visual arts background. So it didn't take that much. But I did go back for a few years at night while I was working, and I had gotten a job immediately in design and in advertising, and then I got a job teaching full-time, and I just fell in love with teaching full-time.
Wow. So, what I don't want to lose in this conversation is a level of perseverance, right? to go back to school while working full time, taking night classes, it kind of goes back to our conversation of you understanding your why. Because people can give up on that. People can say, oh, I just can't do this. I have too much else to juggle. A lot of times, you get to a point in your life where maybe you're raising a family, working a full-time job, and you want to go back to school. And it sounds like what got you through that was really understanding your why and having a passion around what you were studying as well.
Yes. I mean, I was lucky. I didn't have children at the time. And I think it's different for people, for single mothers, for people raising families.
Yes.
And when I did become a mother and juggling teaching and writing and raising a child, it changes the equation. But I definitely am somebody who perseveres. And I think it's about passion. It's about making a decision. It's about finding your why and hustle. I mean, I think you can't ignore being a hustler.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, really going after
putting in the
work, going after something. I always tell my students, you're talented. That's why you're here. That's why we selected you for this, really terrific program and a BFA program. But you have to hustle.
Yeah.
You have to go after it. You have to network. You have to reach out to people. You have to ask people for interviews, for information interviews. Talent's not enough. Even the why is not enough.
Right.
It's a combination of it all has to. It's like it all has to come up cherries in that slot machine.
Yes, they all have to line up so you can hit the lottery, right?
Yeah.
And it's puzzle pieces.
Yes.
They all come together.
Yes. And
to form the picture.
And believe it or not, you can't tell now, but I was shy.
Were you?
Yes, I was shy. I had a lot of trouble, not in front of the classroom. I don't know why. That seemed to be okay. But when at my first university, when we had parents and open house and the dean said, you have to go talk to them, I was like, I don't think I could do that. And I had to learn. So there are so many challenges and so many obstacles that anybody faces that it does have to all come up cherries.
And that's pushing beyond your comfort zone too.
Yes.
And being okay with that and knowing that that's going to happen. But again, you stay persistent and you do it anyway.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You move forward, you hustle, and you do it anyway.
And you find tricks. I had to trick myself into walking over to people and introducing myself and talking.
Well, tell us more about that trick. I'm sure that can help many of us.
I would make believe it wasn't me.
Really?
Yes, I would make believe that I was an actor and I was playing a role and I had to go do this. And so it wasn't going to get to me. And then when I would go on interviews, I would it was kind of chic back then. I would wear a vest. It was kind of in style. And they couldn't get to my heart because I was wearing a vest. So
interesting.
I'm the queen of tricking myself into doing things that I find uncomfortable.
That's almost a whole nother episode for a podcast. Lord willing, we have season 2. We might have to bring you back for that. I'm sure you wrote a book about that too.
It's a book about productivity. So I've tricked myself into being a very productive person.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely think that's another episode for us. I wanted to go back to your mention of the lovely woman who introduced you to the world of graphic design. Because you told me a wonderful story about you receiving an award, and she happened to be receiving an award. So can you do the honor of stating her name again and telling us that wonderful story?
Yes, thank you for asking. Dorothy Hayes was a Black graphic designer, a pioneer in the New York City scene. She was from Mobile, Alabama, but moved to New York and had a design practice at a time when women didn't and Black women didn't. And she was esteemed in all circles. And I recently was honored with the AIGA, which is the National Design Association 2025 Stephen Heller Prize for Cultural Commentary.
Wow.
And at the ceremony, They don't let anybody know who's receiving awards until
Okay.
that night. And
Okay.
so when you see the other awardees for different things, they give out a gold medal for a designer, they give out a corporate medal.
Mm-hmm.
And that night, I found out that Dorothy Hayes was receiving a posthumous gold medal for
Wow.
design, and it was. I'm going to cry now. It
Yeah.
was really a full circle
Yeah.
moment for me. I was very fortunate to meet her sister and to meet her family
Oh, that night.
that night.
Oh, that's
Yes,
awesome.
yes, because she's very dear to me.
Yeah. Like we said, she introduced you to the world of graphic design. It sounds like she was a wonderful mentor to you. And for you to be surprised on a night when you are receiving a prestigious award that she is also being awarded, I can only imagine the emotions of that evening.
Oh, it was incredible. And not only was she an esteemed designer and educator, but kind,
Yeah.
very kind, to take me under her wing and
Mm-hmm.
say, sure, this is what we do. This is what you can pursue. She didn't have to do that. I was
Right.
just an
Yeah.
adjunct. I wasn't full-time in her faculty.
Mm-hmm.
And really, she understood the power of helping other women
Yeah.
or just helping, because she was actually teaching at a very diverse university of first generation college students. City Tech, like Kean, serves
Yes.
first generation
Yes.
students, and just an incredible individual, and also a sculptor.
Oh,
Yes,
really?
also a sculptor.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's
Thank you
that's
for asking.
beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. So, let's talk leadership by design. You co-wrote Leadership by Design with Kean University President Lamont Repollet. And so, can you talk to us a little bit about the central idea behind Leadership by Design?
We believe that any leader should be the chief architect, that leadership can emerge, certainly. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen it emerge when I put students together, leaders emerge, but you
Yes.
can't bank on that. And there is no playbook anymore for the kind of radical transformation that the world is going through. And if you don't see leadership as something that you architect, something that you plan, thinking about the future, thinking about legacy, thinking about service, thinking about being a servant leader,
Yes.
thinking about a values-based leader, which President Repollet always goes back to,
Mm-hmm.
being values-based, living your principles. We really were on the same page about that kind of thinking, about the fact that leadership is a design discipline.
Interesting. So I wonder how many people kind of intuitively think about it like that. Probably not too many. That you have to, and I'm going to use the word again, intentional. How many times can we say intentional in this podcast episode? But you have to be intentional about your plans for your leadership, is what I hear you say.
Yes, absolutely. And President Repollet has a theory that I think, and it's probably best to ask him about it, but that a three-stranded cord is stronger than a single strand, from Ecclesiastes.
Yes.
That when we think about winning hearts of people, when we think about building your brand, and we think about results, achieving success, those three together form a great plan of thinking about the future, about thinking about how you can best serve your constituency.
How, with regards to that and related to that, how does adopting a designer's structured problem-solving mindset fundamentally change a leader's approach to organizational challenges when they have that type of mindset?
Designers always think about their audience.
Okay.
And they always think about pain points. They always think about how can we best serve this audience, because it's never about the brand. It's about the people. It's about the audience. What can we do for them? And the research is always audience-based, and then you're problem-solving. And the best designers are not only problem-solving, but problem-finding, looking for things that they need to think about in the future, that they need to solve, that haven't yet materialized. And so the designer's mindset is a wonderful one for really making sure all your stakeholders are being considered in your plans, because you're solving problems for them.
Yeah.
It's not about you, right? It's not, people buy a hammer, they don't want the hammer, they want to get the nail into the wall, right?
Yes.
Right? It's what problem are you solving for people? And I think leaders often forget that it's the results that the people want.
Yeah. Wow. That's a word right there. It's the results that the people want. It's not the focus of only the leader and what does the leader want.
Right. And that's what Dr. Repollet does so well. When he had his recent town halls, he did something interesting that a lot of designers do as well. He's kind of a natural designer, natural architect. He listens before he tells. So we all designers talk about, in advertising, we talk about storytelling.
Okay.
But you have to be a story listener first.
Talk to me more about that.
And if you're not listening to what people want, if you're not listening to their needs, their desires, their challenges, how do you know how to solve anything? How do you know what plans to make? And so when he had a town hall, he wanted to listen to the students, whether they had concerns about commuting or they had concerns about what level of research this institution was at. And he said, I hear you. I'm listening. And I'm going to act on what you're telling me. It's not just that I'm here and it's going to be performative.
Right.
I'm actually going to do things to solve the issues that you're bringing up. And so I once facilitated a workshop with a great designer named John Maeda, and he talked about story listening coming first. And I think that's the markers of a great leader.
Story listening. I like that, because when we talk about communication, some of the most important pieces of advice around communication are you have to listen. Because a lot of times our minds are programmed as someone's talking to me, I'm already trying to solve their problem. I'm already thinking of the solution. But that's not necessarily what is required or needed. If I quiet my mind and actually listen to what the person is saying to me, sometimes they might not even need me to provide them a solution.
That's right. Well, you say you're a mother and you understand that.
Well, yes, my two daughters. But
that's also very high emotional intelligence, what you just said.
And you said before, right? Emotional intelligence is important. Leaders and story listening, that resonates a lot.
Yes.
That definitely resonates.
And President Repollet's a very good listener. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but when he first approached me, we were waiting in a green room to go on for a conference, and I had never had the occasion to really talk to him one-on-one before. I had met him, and I'll tell you how I met him. But he said, we should, because I had just given him a copy of my book, and I gave a copy to you, and you were in the green room too. And he did a couple of things that day that were just really unusual for a leader, for the president of a university, that really blew my mind, I have to say. And Daba Mandela was there in the green room with us. And President Repollet said, "Oh, you should have a picture with him. Give me your phone. I'll take your I'm like, who would do that?
Yeah.
What university leader would worry that I don't have a photo with the guest speaker? So that impressed me. And he was talking about writing a book, and he told me a story. But the reason I said yes, because I usually run the other way when people ask me to co-author.
Oh, you typically don't
I
co-author.
typically don't, right? I'm an
Oh.
only child.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I get it.
And I like to depend on myself, and I'm fast and I'm productive. But when he was on the board of trustees at Kean University, when he was not our university president as yet, I presented to the board about a project that my students did that was a really important project. They had worked with John Pendergrass, the human rights activist, and they created a campaign about conflict gold in Africa.
Okay.
And it went international. It got international notice, and I presented it to the board. And when the board finished and it was all concluded, Dr. Repollet was the only person who walked across the room and shook my hand and said, I appreciate that. I heard what you did. That was terrific what you did with the students.
Wow.
Thank you for doing that. I never forgot that.
Well, and I can imagine how that made you feel.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You felt seen.
Yes.
You felt heard.
Yes.
Speaking of listening to.
Yes.
And you said that stuck with you.
That stuck with me, and I thought he was an extraordinary. I mean, that imprinted his personal brand.
Yeah.
Of being compassionate, of being empathetic, of recognizing someone, of seeing someone, of realizing that this person just did something. Let me acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this is a person who I feel simpatico with.
Yeah, yeah. I hope everyone grabs a copy and reads it because I think it will give insight into individuals. So talking about book writing and you being a top selling author, I'm certain that we have aspiring writers listening in. And so people who want to write a book, but, maybe they're not sure where to start. How the heck do I go about writing a book? I have these ideas in my head, but I don't know what to do with them. What advice and tools and tips do you have for folks who want to become authors and want to write a book?
They should really go on to a bookseller, walk into a bricks and mortar bookstore and see what's on that same subject, see what's out there, see who publishes it. Publishers have what we call lists, subjects that they publish.
Typically,
typically publish.
Okay.
So, for example, the leadership book that President Repollet and I just wrote, there are a lot of leadership books. And so what the editors who were talking to us, to whom we sent the proposal, said, well, what makes yours different?
Yes.
So let's go back to differentiation.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
What do you have to offer that's unique? Do you have a unique selling point? Why should we publish yet another leadership book? Mm-hmm. And we did. We have a unique selling point, which is the idea that leadership is designed.
Yep.
And so you always want to see what can you offer that's not out there.
Okay.
What's different? What do you have to say that's of value to readers? You want to know who your readership might be, because although everybody thinks, well, everybody's going to want this book, you never say everyone is your audience. That's the first turnoff to an editor. When you say it's for everyone.
Interesting.
It's never for everyone.
Okay.
And you have to be actually very specific. So if I say that my book is for faculty, well, which faculty? Mm-hmm. Not only what subject area, but which classes do they teach?
Okay.
So you have to get really specific about who would read this, who are your readers, why are you the perfect person to write the book. So anytime that you're sending a query to an editor, you really have to think like a marketer. Mm-hmm. It becomes a marketing document, which is why I'm very good at writing book proposals.
Well, yes, that is your expertise.
That's right. And I know how to pitch something. You're talking about an elevator pitch.
Yeah.
You essentially need an elevator pitch to pitch an editor.
Okay.
And so the first step is to send what we call a query letter, which now is email, not actual snail mail anymore, right? But it's still called a query letter, and you have to pitch it to the editor with a synopsis and with your bio and explaining why and succinctly why you're the perfect person to write this particular subject.
Okay.
And then the book proposal has to be very clear in terms of, can you put your concept into one kind of log line? Like in filmmaking, we call it a log line. What's your pitch to make this film? What's the one sentence about this that would get the editor to really look at it? Because you have to get through a few gates, but the first gate is the senior editor. That person is called has different titles in different countries. It could be the acquisitions editor in the UK, a senior editor in New York. It depends, but it's this editor who's going to make that first decision. If it's not, I'm talking about nonfiction. Fiction is a whole other ball game.
Okay.
You need an agent.
Yeah. Okay.
You usually need a literary agent for fiction.
Okay.
You don't usually need an agent for nonfiction, especially if you're an expert in the discipline.
Got it.
And if you're attached to a university, you definitely don't need an agent. But if you're writing fiction, you almost always need a literary agent, which finding a literary agent is as difficult as finding a publisher.
Wow. So there's a lot to it. I never knew that, frankly. So thank you for that overview and that background. And I guess what I hear you saying is it's probably good advice to do all of that pre-work before you dive into the actual writing.
Yes.
Because if you dive into the writing and you've written something that no one is willing to pick up, well, what happens, right?
Right.
So it's better to get that buy-in, right?
Well, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. But there are people who want to write it, and then because you can self-publish today, and there are many ways to self-publish, and people write fan fiction and can publish their own works. However, and some people are very successful with that, but that's rare because you're talking about distribution. How do you get people to see it? How do you get people to read it? But if you want a publisher, then you have to, it's a kind of old school route of getting an editor interested or getting an agent interested.
Okay. Bottom line there, I think, is do your research.
Yes.
Right? Really understand the steps and the process.
Yes.
And all of the things that are required so that you can make an informed decision about the writing.
Yes.
That's very helpful. And I'm sure our listeners will appreciate that. So our conversation has been quite enlightening today. I know I learned a lot. I hope our listeners did and our audience did as well. I want to thank you for walking us through the keys that I think really are important to becoming a purposeful leader. Understanding who we are so we can create a personal brand, and really being intentional, authentic, making sure that we are somehow differentiating ourselves. And also thank you for sharing for those who want to be authors, the things that they need to think about and consider for their writing projects. Robin, we've come to our final segment, the Climb Higher with Her rapid fire round.
Uh-oh.
Everyone says that. That makes me laugh. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and all you have to do is answer with kind of the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay? So the first question is, coffee, tea, or water?
Oh, coffee.
All right.
Oh, my goodness, coffee.
Multiple cups of coffee?
Multiple cups of coffee followed by tea, yeah.
Okay. Second question, what is one simple tool, digital or analog, that you use every day to capture ideas?
I write notes to myself.
Okay.
Whether on the note app or I sometimes email notes to myself.
Okay. Interesting.
Because if I write it down, I won't find it. I mean, if I write it on paper,
yeah, you won't.
No,
you might write it in 100 different
Yeah,
places,
yes,
right?
yeah.
Okay. When reading books for pleasure, hard copy, digital, e-reader, or audio?
Hard copy.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were the type of person that has to have that hard book in your
love
hand so you
books.
can page through. Yes.
I'm a designer. We're still like one of the last groups who love books.
I definitely knew you were going to say that. Question number 4, movies, plays, or musicals?
Oh, all of them. I just wrote a play.
You did?
I did, and it was published in a literary journal. My first play, yes. But movies.
Movies. If you had to pick, you're going to say movies.
Yeah, I'm going to write a movie someday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Well, that's on my, my retirement list.
I love it. The retirement list. What is, our last question, what is your personal one-word mantra for when you need to climb higher?
Oh. That's really tough, Darlene. One word. Do.
Do. Yeah.
I'd say just do it, but
that's kind of, I did, but we'll cheat. We'll go with the phrase, just do it.
Just do it.
That's actually mine.
Oh.
It's just do it, right? And sometimes you talked about tricking yourself. That's what we have to do. We have to say, I don't want to do this maybe, but I'm just going to do it.
Yes. That's what my new book's about. Yeah.
And tell us again the title of that new book.
Oh, that new book is How to Get Stuff Done, the Non-Negotiable Mindset.
Oh, I'm buying that. I am absolutely buying that. I love it. Thank you for sharing, Robin. That was awesome. Your one-word mantra for when you need to climb higher, do it, or in our case, we agreed we could say just do it, is a perfect note to end on. And so, listeners, if you took one thing away from today, let it be this. Your brand is your currency. Robin Landa has shown us that the most successful leaders aren't just managing people. They are designing their influence through clear purpose and strategic creativity and authenticity. Thank you so much, Robin Landa, distinguished professor and best-selling author, for climbing higher with us today.
Thank you, Darlene. You're wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Climb Higher with Her, a podcast produced by Kean, a proud research university. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. For more information, visit kean.edu/climb higher with her.